Welcome to the Awakened Goddess Show, your source for inspiration, wisdom, and personal discovery. The place to learn from a diverse mix of mentors, metaphysical experts, spiritual leaders, and best-selling authors from around the world. I'm Angela Wilkinson, attraction coach and founder of The Goddess Next Door. Join me as I explore the minds of my masterful guests while they share powerful insights and easy-to-use tools you can start using right away. Now, let's tap into the energy of the Awakened Goddess and be enlightened by today's guest. Hey everyone, I'm your host, Angela Wilkinson, and welcome to this episode of the Awakened Goddess Show, the place for practical spirituality for daily living. Barbara Biziou is a global ritual expert, life coach, and the author of 2 books, The Joy of Ritual and The Joy of Family Rituals. Barbara's greatest passion is to inspire, empower, and support people going through all of life's transitions with easy-to-access rituals and spiritual practices that make life richer, easier, and way more meaningful. But before I talk to Barbara today, let's talk about what your 2015 will be like. Have you given it any thought? How would you like to manifest a first-class life with ease? Take your life to the next level. Have more success, love, and happiness on your terms? Have you noticed whenever you want to make a change, like make more money, have a deeper soulful relationship, or upgrade your life, it brings up fear, self-doubt, and frustration? Well, why does this happen? It's because the beliefs you have want to keep you in your comfort zone. Unfortunately, that means your current beliefs will keep you stuck right where you are and will make it difficult to manifest what you want. To create your first-class life, you have to have first-class beliefs. Whether you have a business you want to take off, you're ready to meet the love of your life, or you're ready to bust through money blocks, I'm here to help. Sparked, 5 Weeks to Manifest Your First-Class Life is an in-depth program that'll walk you step by step through powerful tools to have everything your heart desires. Registration ends in just a few weeks, so to claim your spot, go to thegoddessnextdoor.com/sparked. Thanks for listening. Welcome, Barbara, to the Awakened Goddess Show. I'm so thrilled to have you join me today to talk about rituals. Welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So for those people that have not really familiarized themselves with what a ritual is, let's just start really, at that level, and then we'll dive in deeper in a second.
Okay. Well, a ritual is really a way of stopping and honoring all of life's passages. So it's actually a structured event that you create that will move you from one level of consciousness to another. So, for example, just you and I today, this could be a ritual of friendship or connection because our intention is to really connect on a deep level and to open up. We have a beginning to it, we have a middle, and we have an end. And we can create a very special ritual out of this conversation. So you can shift something very ordinary into something very sacred and special.
I love that. I love creating sacred space. And so that's awesome. I'm glad that you brought that to my awareness because I didn't realize that something like this we could even call as a ritual. So rituals, I know, can be very powerful. So how is it? What makes them powerful?
There are 2 things that make them powerful in my experience. Number one is when you do ritual, you're really calling in other resources other than yourself. So that's number one. And number 2, the way the brain functions and the way the brain processes, the brain actually doesn't know the difference between us creating a ritual and an actual event. So I could do a ritual to release a bad relationship, and my brain reads it as finished, over. So it has a very powerful effect on the neural pathways of the brain.
Yeah, I know I've done some like fire releasing ceremonies or rituals. And yeah, there are times where you can definitely feel a huge shift. And so I love rituals. So I'm curious, what inspired you to start practicing rituals?
Well, I've always been interested in what other people do to make sense of the world, and I think that was my starting point. I probably should have been an anthropologist. I studied psychology in college, but I was really interested in other cultures. So I spent time in Europe, even when I was in college, and, explored different cultures. But then for me, it was very personal. So if you read my book, The Joy of Ritual, I talk about it in the beginning, that when I was in my 20s, my sister died of a brain tumor. And I was 6 weeks pregnant. She was 24 years old, and I just couldn't deal with it. It was just, I didn't have resources. And I just squashed down all those feelings, and really they stayed squashed for many, many years until I was lucky enough to be at a retreat with one of my teachers, Brew Joy, in Arizona. And part of it was silence and fasting. And in this time, especially for a New Yorker, the silence was worse than the fasting.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
3 days of not talking. But what happens, and anyone who's ever been in that situation knows, what happens in that silence and that quiet is everything you've put away and pretended doesn't exist comes popping up again. It's like a volcano erupts.
Yes.
And it was very clear that I had unfinished business and hadn't really grieved. And I knew I had to do something, but I couldn't ask anyone because I was in silence, and we weren't even allowed to read books then either, by the way.
Sure.
So I had to trust my intuition, which really guided me to go up to this mountain and just search out the biggest tree I could find. And I found this tree. It was like a magnet pulled me, and I fell down on the dirt with my hands and knees, and I was digging a hole and crying and rocking back and forth and literally giving my grief to the earth. Oh. And I was praying, and I don't even know half of what I did, to be honest. I mean, it was a little bit of a blur. But when I was finished, something just said it's over. And I remember covering up the hole with dirt, putting a little sage on because I had brought some with me, standing up. And like you said, after your fire ritual, I knew something had changed. And it's not that I never think of my sister anymore. Of course I do. But that kind of, how you feel like someone punches you in the stomach sometime, that feeling was gone.
Yeah.
And I just knew something had been healed, and I started to walk back to where I was staying, and it started pouring. And it was like, okay, I'm being cleansed. I'm being purified. I mean, now I look at everything symbolic. My friends probably think I'm nuts, but everything I do is symbolic at this point.
Yeah.
And from that moment on, I wanted to know more about ritual. And then I discovered later, days later, that I had actually enacted a Native American grief ritual where you're supposed to give your grief to the earth. You find a grandmother tree. And the movement I was doing, I found out from a dancer, came from ancient Mesopotamia. And it was a movement that helps remove grief from your body. Yeah. So here I was not, quote, not knowing, but trusting and accessing all this global information that really changed me. Yeah. And from that moment, I just wanted to talk to anyone. I went around interviewing everyone, traveling as much as possible, coming back to New York. And I did a different ritual every month, kind of like a laboratory experiment. It could be bringing in love. It could be women who lost children to miscarriage or abortion. It could be a new moon ritual, a prosperity ritual, whatever. I tried everything. And eventually was asked to write a book, and actually wrote 2, Joy of Ritual and Joy of Family Rituals. All came out of that time. Yeah. So I was just guided.
Yeah, I can even feel that energy within my own body as you're talking about that story and your experience in letting go of that grief. And I think, what a powerful experience. And I think that for us to really embody something, we have to experience it ourselves, and I think that bringing ritual into our lives is such a fantastic way, like you say, to tap into the greater resources that are available to us and help our mind maybe wrap around, kind of letting go and allowing in that energy to support us.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Rituals traditionally are to support people in all life transitions, to give you that support, to give you a map. And I don't know how many people do you know who have kids, but kids love rituals.
Mm-hmm.
Kids feel very safe with rituals. They're very, very grounded. Even I remember when my son was little, and, even as simple as, every Saturday, I'm making this up, he had to have pizza. Yeah. And he had to have the same sandwich every day. It made him feel safe. Mm-hmm. And I think parents don't always understand sometimes when your kid needs the same bedtime story 1,000 times or something. It's a way of making them feel grounded and safe enough to take risks in other areas of their life. It's the same with us. When we have those rituals that stabilize us, we take more risks.
That's so true. As you're talking, I'm thinking about even like athletes, how they maybe wear the same socks or they do the same type of ritual. Even that's a ritual, doing the same thing over and over before a game. And yeah, I can see how that would give them that comfort to push themselves more. So yeah, I think that we do really have a lot of rituals in our life that we maybe not recognize as a ritual. So yeah, that's awesome. So I'm always interested in talking about prosperity and success. And so how can someone use a ritual in their life to open themselves up more to prosperity and success?
Well, number one, as we're talking, this is Diwali, which is the Hindu festival of lights in the new year. And it's the time when the goddess Lakshmi actually blesses your finances for the year.
Perfect.
So right now, as we're talking,
all right.
The traditional rituals it would be you do a ceremony, a puja to Lakshmi, and then you do a mantra, to Lakshmi, asking her to bless your checkbooks or your credit cards. We did a big ritual last night with my Women's New Moon group. Nice. Part of it also, though, is to really, be open to the prosperity and allow it in. So many people say they want prosperity, but then when they get it, they turn it down. And Shakima, who you know, just told me a story last night where she was at my prosperity ritual a couple of weeks ago. And when she left, she was walking to the subway in New York, and this couple from South America came up to her and asked for directions, and she gave them directions, and then they were talking, and she said something about, it's my birthday. And they said, let us buy you a drink and dinner. We want to do something. And she's thinking to herself, random, crazy people from South America. But then she thought, I just came out of a prosperity ritual.
Yeah.
And someone had told a story about how, wherever they went, people were buying them drinks and food at restaurants. She goes, I'm going to say yes.
Yeah.
She said yes, and they took her out to a fabulous dinner.
Nice.
So it's, we need to also be open. One of the keys, again, to prosperity is looking at your limiting beliefs, obviously, which stop you. It's like a wall. If you believe you have to only work hard to get money, if you believe only men or women could do a certain job, if you believe that you're not smart enough, young enough, thin enough, all that stuff, it's going to block you.
Sure.
So you have to take those blinders. So that's a little bit of inner archaeology, so to speak. And once you do that, it's to really get clear on what it is you really want to create, and don't worry about how you do it. So if, for example, you really want to have a book out in the world, don't get stuck in, all those little details. When I wrote my book, to be honest, I never even finished my book proposal, and I got 6 figures for my book, with a major publisher.
Yeah.
So when you put aside those, it has to be a certain way. You limit how it comes in. And be very conscious of being grateful for everything you have. So you go to the store today and you buy a dozen eggs and there's 5 cents off. You just got a gift from the universe. And you want to stop and say, thank you. I just received money from the universe. So when you start becoming aware, it builds on it. You charge it. Another thing I like to do is always keep a large bill in my wallet. because that gives a message to me and my brain every time I open my wallet, I see $100 bill or something, that I'm prosperous.
Yeah.
Then I feel prosperous. Then I act differently. I might ask for more, for a job I'm doing. I might be more comfortable, being open to someone sharing something. So it's a consciousness. Sure. Prosperity is about giving and receiving, and it really is a consciousness.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think that maybe we're really unaware how much we resist receiving. We maybe think we're asking all the time. And then, like you say, when it shows up, it doesn't look how we think, or we're not expecting it. And so and
we turn it down.
Yeah. We judge it because, that may, what's like there's a hidden agenda.
Right. I'll give you another example. Like I said, I do prosperity rituals, and I had a woman come to my prosperity ritual, and she had said she didn't have very much money and she really needed it. She called me 2 weeks later. She said, I was in a park and I sat down on a bench. There were 2 other women there, and I looked down, and at my feet there was this big, bag. So we opened the bag. It was filled with $100 bills. There was $60,000 in this bag. And she said, but then she started to do what you said. What if there's a drug dealer next door and he has a gun and he's going to shoot me? And I mean, she made up this entire story. Whereas one of the other women said, I'm going to take this to the bank across the street and see if it's real. She did. They said it was real. And if, she wanted, they would take all the money, check it to make sure it wasn't stolen. And if it wasn't, they'd give it back to her. And the person who came to my prosperity ritual was too scared, and she got up and she left it all behind.
Wow.
So I don't know what happened to those 2 other women. I'm assuming they took it to the bank and split the $60,000, but again, it didn't come in the way she thought it was supposed to come. So, you want to really be open to it coming in many different ways. And the biggest tip I can give is when you're feeling scarcity, that's the time to give to somebody else. That's the time to give a bigger tip to the person who just gave you your tea or your coffee, or take something out of your closet and recycle it and give it. You're affirming to the universe that you are prosperous.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so important is giving back and continuing that flow, because if you're holding on so tightly, you can completely block that flow. So that's an awesome tip. So how does doing rituals affect our mind and our mindset?
Well, again, in this way, if you're doing a prosperity ritual, one of the things I like to do in a prosperity ritual, just like feng shui, is you surround yourself with things that are abundant. So whatever you look at is what you bring into your consciousness, and then you start to act, because your thoughts affect your emotions, which affect your actions. So you'll take different actions if you're feeling more prosperous. And that's why it's really important, whether it's a relationship you're looking for, a new job, money, good health, that you want to shift how you're holding it, because that really affects your body. It affects, when I do healing rituals with people, one of the keys to that is people are participating in their own healing. They're not being a victim. They shift from victim to participant. It already boosts your immune system and makes you stronger. So you have more resources. So it's crucial. What you think really affects everything that you do and, create in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm wondering is, how do you make that experience last? When you do a ritual and you have all that great energy and you feel like you're in the flow, how do you what do you need to do to see lasting results?
Okay, what you need to say to me, and I always say this, ritual's the key that opens the door. It will let you go through. But once you're there, you need to do things differently, and you need to be consistent. So if I do a ritual to let go of smoking, drinking, eating fat, gluten, whatever I'm doing, I broke the pattern for that moment, but then I have to do things very differently. And it's only small, constructive things, not big things. One thing that helps you, I find, is to keep a success jar. You get a big jar, a glass jar, write success, and let's assume you did a ritual to bring in more prosperity or better health or relationship. Every time you take a step towards that goal, even tiny, 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 put a dime, a quarter, a penny, a dollar, a euro, something in it. So you actually watch it grow. It gives a message to your brain that you're actually achieving what you want. So it motivates you to keep going. It's like, when you start to lose weight and you see yourself losing a pound and then another and another, it motivates you. So in the same way, if you do something like the success jar, it will motivate you to keep going. Because, things don't always happen in our timing, too.
Yeah.
So we have to really take into account when we're putting in a new habit, it takes a good 30, 40 days for it to really lock in. And if you don't give it that amount of time, you'll be unrealistic and you'll, be disappointed. Mm-hmm. Some things happen immediately. I'm not saying they don't. Magic happens.
Yes.
However, for the majority of people, there's a time delay. And once you're aware of it, then you're okay with it.
Yeah. Is that time delay due to the level of limiting beliefs that we have that we're still carrying around? Or what is that? What causes that time delay?
Least things. So I'll give an example of food. You're eating all the food that you know is not good for you. You're not exercising. So you gain 20 pounds. Then you go on a diet. And you throw out all the bad food, and now you're only eating very clean, good food. You weigh yourself the second day, and you've gained a pound. It's not because you're eating good new food. It's because for the last 2, 3, 4 weeks, months, years, you've been eating lousy food, and it's catching up with you. So that's kind of the time delay. You put all this energy into one thing that's not working, and when you switch it, there's still some spillover. And it takes a little bit of time for that to change. And again, it's like, you go on a fast and your face may break out immediately and before it clears up. Again, that's part of the purification. So again, by understanding it, though, it puts it into a context that makes it easier to be with that discrepancy of not having what you want.
Yeah, and I think that really speaks to what you were saying about being consistent. And really developing those new habits, because like you say, some things happen very quickly, but most things do happen in a more gradual process. It's like sometimes we, I think, have to slow the momentum of the old way of being to start the ball rolling in a new direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And as soon as you're overworked, you're tired, you get sick, it's so easy to fall back in your old habits because you don't have the same focus and energy. So if it's only by willpower alone, that could drop, especially if you're tired physically. Yeah. And you need to be aware of that. It's not all about willpower.
Yeah.
Ask the universe to help you. One of the things, the rituals that I love to do when I do a to-do list, I take a piece of paper and I make a line down the middle. I like to do it with an actual pen, but you could do it on your computer, make, a PDF or something. On one side, I write what I'm going to do, and on the other side, I write from the universe. So it's what I want the universe to help me with.
Nice.
So if I'm looking for new clients, I might on my side say, redo a proposal, do some social media today, call 3 old clients, get a reference. But on the other side, I'm saying, send me 3 new clients who, are willing to pay my fee easily. Or, I want to connect to new people that I haven't connected to before who I might align with and create an alliance. So you do it both. And it's a great ritual because you're bringing in the universe to help you.
Sure. Yeah. So say we've done our ritual and we feel like we're on the right path, we're doing all of our things, and we maybe just feel like things still aren't changing, kind of hitting that wall and our willpower is kind of fading and it's like we're holding on, kind of like that white knuckle
right
time. What kinds of things should we be doing at that point?
Well, when you're feeling like you're holding on like that, you need to literally do a ritual to let go.
Oh.
So you might even, write down all that stuff that you're upset about, crumble it up, hold it in your hand really, really tight, or pick up two stones and write words on them that represent what you're holding on to, and then just literally open your hands and let it go. The mind is very exact. I had a client who felt that she was just all chained up. So I went to Home Depot and bought her chain and wrapped her up, and then we cut the chain so she felt free. So, symbols are the language of the soul. So when you're feeling that way, if you can create a tiny letting go ritual, I use my morning shower every morning to release anything I'm holding on to that's not serving me, or any worry or any fear. So I'm constantly, every day I do release rituals, every day, even if they're 2 seconds.
Yeah.
It's really important. It's like you don't brush your teeth once a month. Okay. So we need to constantly clear out our energy because we pick up stuff from other people. We're reading something. Suddenly your mother says, "Oh, what are you doing? That's so stupid." And you take it on even though you don't agree with her. So we have to constantly clear that stuff out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a great point. And it only has to take just a couple seconds, like you say. It's that intention of letting that go. And I love the simplicity of, when you feel like something's not working, that just taking the time to do a letting go ritual. I how simple is that? I would have never thought of that. So I'm glad you.
At work, because I've done it with people in corporations. I tell them to write stuff down that's not working and shred it, or cut it up, or just put it in a ball and throw it away. It's as simple as that, but it gives a very strong message to your brain that you let it go and you made more space. Because if not, what starts to happen is your body goes into a stress mode. And all these chemicals start pumping out that are stress chemicals, that are testosterone, that are chemicals that keep you from actually making good decisions. And it makes you want to isolate from other people. Mm-hmm. So it's not supporting your creative process because you then go into stress. So you have to do something to regulate that to get those happy feel-good chemicals back again. And then you have more resources. You can see more things. You open up your life again.
Yeah, and I can see how, as you're talking in the release of the testosterone, those of us that have the tendency to shift easily to the masculine, I can see how, because there's that thought that, okay, this isn't working, so I've got to do more. And so that's a really good insight about, that's your body just kind of going into overdrive, and it's maybe another sign to go the other direction, which doesn't feel like, your ego's telling you, let's work harder.
Right. And again, like you said, with that masculine part of us, and it's useful. Mm-hmm. It's very useful, but it's not the creative part of us. The masculine is the part that takes the feminine creativity and actually structures it to make something happen. So if you're only in the masculine, it's going to kind of try to fix it, and you're going to be fixing an old boat and patching it as opposed to creating something brand new. So you're constantly going back to the old that's not working. And it just makes you more and more stressed. So in that case, you need to access the divine feminine who has more tolerance for chaos, who can be in that messiness for a minute, which is really the place where all new ideas and dreams come from.
Yeah. I think I've had that old boat that I've been fixing for a while. Time to let that one go.
Right.
Yeah. So you have given so many amazing, great tips during this time. And I'm wondering if we were to leave the listeners with just one thing that they could start with immediately, out of all the great suggestions you had, what is it that you would recommend them? Where would the starting point be?
The starting for me always is gratitude. So I start off every morning with a gratitude prayer, and it's not to be a Pollyanna. It's not that my life is always perfect, but I try to focus on what is working, not on the lack. And from that place, again, it affects your brain to give you more creativity and openness to then be more creative. I also like to think if people can in the morning, not only just start with gratitude, take 5 minutes to nurture yourself, to do something, whether it's sit quiet and look outside and drink a cup of tea, or walk your dog if that makes you happy. Something that you start your day off with clear intention and nurturing, your entire day will go better.
Fantastic. Yeah, awesome. I think that's an awesome place to end our show today. So Barbara can be found online at her website, BarbaraBiziou.com. I'll spell that for you. It's BarbaraBiziou.com. She is currently getting geared up for her 20-year anniversary of her most popular workshop, Vision. So if you'd like to spend 3 days in New York City crafting a plan to make 2015 your most prosperous and successful year, then make sure you stop by her website, BarbaraBiziou.com. /Vision 2015 for more details. So thank you, Barbara, for joining me today. This was absolutely such a fantastic, fun conversation. So, yeah.
I've really enjoyed it. Yes, we'll have to do more.
Yes, I agree, because I'm sure that, like you say, we can do rituals for everything, and so I love rituals, so yes, come on anytime.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you everyone for listening to the Awakened Goddess Show. If you enjoyed it as much as we did, make sure to subscribe on iTunes and give us a 5-star rating and review. And until next time, goodbye everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Awakened Goddess. I hope you enjoyed today's show and took away something you can start using in your life right away. For more spiritual insights and to listen to more episodes, subscribe to The Awakened Goddess Show at thegoddessnextdoor.com and discover wisdom that'll change your life.